Howdy, everybody. You're possums. You're the possums. I'm the possum. This is Possum's Big Fiddle Show. Special edition. They're all special editions. This is episode number 10. I'm really trying to get in the groove here where I start doing episodes on a regular basis. So this is episode number 10. Today I'm going to give you a primer on how you get to the Shetland Islands because, Pat and I, if you follow us on Facebook or you follow her Instagram, which is really the place to go, is follow Pat's Instagram because she puts up pictures of every place we're going. But you'll know that last month in October, gosh, it doesn't seem that long ago now, about the second week of October, we went to Scotland with the intention of going to the Shetland Accordion and Fiddle Festival. And we went there, and it was fantastic. Can't say enough about it. That's going to be in another program, episode 11, but episode 10 is going to be about how do you get there, because, it's no small feat to get there. Get out your Google Maps, or if you have a paper atlas, it's even better. But, the Shetland Islands is an archipelago off of Scotland, kind of between Scotland and Norway. I think it's actually closer to Norway, maybe. And it's at 60 degrees north latitude. That's getting up there. That's the same latitude as Skagway, Alaska, by the way, which we went to one time on one of these Inside Passage Alaska cruises. So that's as far north as we got in that cruise ship. So Shetland is up by Skagway, Alaska. It's really up there, far north. So I'm going to tell you all about how we got there, but I'm not going to talk about the festival much, because that's going to be in another episode. But man, it did not disappoint. The whole trip to Scotland was fantastic. I love Scotland. It's, I don't know, people around here, especially in Chicago, there's so many Irish, you can't swing a dead cat on State Street without hitting an Irish musician in the head. So there's a lot of Irish here. A lot of people from Chicago go to Ireland, and Ireland's cool. I love Ireland, but I just like Scotland better. I don't know why. And my ancestors are Scottish on my mother's side. My grandmother Mary MacDonald was from Prince Edward Island, and they were immigrants to Prince Edward Island, Canada. Probably it's part of those Highland clearances you may have heard about, and I think they were from Skye, actually. We haven't scoped all that out yet. So anyway, this is going to be about how you get to the Shetland Islands. But I want to play a tune first, and I'm doing something very experimental today. I'm playing this silent violin hooked up to my little mixing board here. That way I can record the show in the wee hours of the morning without disturbing anyone. So I'm going to start out by playing a tune called 40 Years Ago Waltz. A friend of mine up in Canada, asked if I would transcribe the tune, and I did transcribe it. It's on my website at at charliewalden.com/dots. You can find a list of all the tune types. If you punch waltzes and you slide down, you'll find 40 Year Ago Waltz. You can click it. There's the PDF, and you can print it out, download it, whatever. But it's a cool tune. It was a really popular contest tune when I was growing up. And it's in B flat. I'm going to try to play a little bit. I had a really hard time transcribing it, actually. It was really tough for me because I'm not a very good music reader or transcriber. I can kind of I'm good with the tunes where there's a lot of running 16th notes. But when it comes to a lot of odd rhythms and chords and things, I have a little trouble. But so I'll play you the way I play it. Unaccompanied here with the electronic fiddle. This thing has no body, you see. It's one of these silent violins, but hopefully it won't be silent. You'll actually be able to hear it. I think it's coming through there. And so I'm going to turn my mic down because it does actually put out a little sound. These things aren't completely silent. In fact, if someone's playing one next to you, it could be quite annoying, in fact, because it puts out quite a bit of noise, but not enough to sound good. Sounds like someone's playing on an old set of bed springs, actually. Hopefully it won't sound like that while I've got it plugged in. So let's try, before we get any further into this whole Shetland thing, let's play a little bit of the 40 Years Ago Waltz. I'm going to turn this mic down and see what happens. Okay, I hope that came through all right. The old 40 years ago waltz. So, I'm seeing my stream is not doing too good tonight. It's dropping a lot of frames. Hope that's not a problem out there. Let's see if I can view my stream here. Just one second. I've got this phone here. Let's see if I can view my stream. Nobody's chatting. This could be going out into the nowhere world. Let's see what's happening here with my dashboard on Twitch. No, there's something happening. It's sticking a lot. Picture looks good. Let's see. No, there's me looking at my phone. Oh, maybe it might be working. Hey, could possibly be working. Okay, good. All right, so so let's get on to this business about the Shetland Islands. As I said, they're out there in out there in the North Atlantic. So to get there, you have to take. Well, we took a taxi to O'Hare Airport. Now, O'Hare Airport, and then when we fly to the UK, we like to take Aer Lingus. One thing is, again, as I said before, there's so vast numbers of people of Irish descent here in Chicago that Aer Lingus has a lot of flights to Ireland, and so we usually can get a fairly inexpensive flight to Dublin, and then flip across the Irish Sea on a little plane over to Edinburgh and on from there. So we took a taxi. We took 2 airplanes, mini cabs, foot power, a train to Aberdeen, a ferry, a 12-hour ferry ride in the North Atlantic to Shetland. And that's where this program will stop. In the next program, I'll talk to you about the rest of the event. But let's see. I'm trying something new here tonight. Let's see if I can make it work. I'm trying a slideshow. Hey, can you see me there? All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you about how you get to the Shetland Islands from here in the United States, because getting there is a big part of the process. So let's take a quick look here. By the way, if you want to comment, you can chat on Twitch if you're watching me on Twitch. Later on, I'm going to post this up on YouTube, so be sure to put a comment down. If you're watching right now, you don't want to chat on Twitch, you can email me at bigfiddleshow@gmail.com. You can call. Man, I'd really like you to call my hotline. I've got the number right here. 847-920-7587. 847-920-7587 here in the US of A. It's not a free call, but nonetheless, call and leave me a message. And if you leave me a message, I'll do my best to answer whatever question or comment you have, and I'd like to play your hotline call on the next program. So anyway, let's get started with my little slideshow. Remember back in the day when annoying neighbors who had been on a vacation, this is like, I'm thinking the 60s and 70s, they'd bring over one of those Kodak slide projectors and a stack of carousels of neatly arranged slides, zillions of slides, and they would proceed to bore you for many hours about their trip to Greece or wherever the hell they went. By the way, this isn't a kids program. I get to say hell as many times as I want. I might even say damn. But there I'm talking about a hydroelectric plant. But anyway, this isn't a kids show, just in case anybody doubted, this is not a kids show. So kids, possums, people, the first thing you got to do is you got to get your passport, because you can't go out of the borders of this great country of ours without a passport. You can't even go to Canada anymore. I remember when I used to work in the automotive industry, I went to Detroit often, and the lads who I was with would want to go over to Canada to buy Cuban cigars and watch the Canadian Ballet, which was a strip club, but nonetheless, that was over the river in Windsor and over the Detroit River. And by gosh, you didn't need a passport in those days. You could have a carload of 6 guys and one guy hold his driver's license up to the window and they just wave you through. That was my kind of border. Anyway, since Osama bin, what's his name, mess the whole world up. You got to have a passport to go everywhere, but you certainly always have to have a passport to go to the UK or Ireland. You don't need a visa, a formal visa. I think that's an electronic visa that's kind of automatic when you buy your ticket. But get your passport. Could take you 6 months, 3 to 6 months to get it. You don't want to pay those rush fees. So if you're planning to go over there, I'd start applying for it right now. Just go down to your post office and ask. They'll be glad to help you out. So you got to book your travel, though, too. So you got a lot of travel to book. Book your airline flights first. That's what we did. Nail those down. Again, I really like Aer Lingus, but from other places in the country, it might work better to use a different airline. But so once you got your travel booked, again, we like to fly to Edinburgh right to Scotland because you're going to get a train out of there to go where you want to go. If you could fly into Heathrow, if you wanted to look at London, but the train costs would be a lot more to get from London up into Scotland and then on from there. So the first thing we did was we booked our ferry ride. We used Northlink Ferry. That's the ferry that takes you everywhere you want to go. Up in the North Sea, they go around from Aberdeen to Lerwick in Shetland, and they go over to Orkney and back down to Aberdeen, and that's what they do pretty much all the time. They also, I think they might run the little ferries that are up in Shetland to get between the islands, but their main gig is this big car ferry, truck ferry that you can actually put an 18-wheeler on and roll it right in. It's a wonderful, wonderful ride. It wasn't that expensive. We had a little trouble navigating their website. I might see here, I put myself down as Lord Charles Walden. I thought that might give me a little cred. Didn't seem to help, but there's a lot more titles to choose from in Britain than there is in the United States. We got Mr., Doctor, go on a limb, be an Esquire maybe, but boy, up there they got titles. Like I could have been a Duke too, but only Duke we got is the Duke of Earl, and we got Dairy Queen, so that's about it here in the States. But so you got to book your you book. The thing that confused me about booking the ticket on there was you have to book the ticket and then book the cabin. We booked a cabin because it's a 12-hour ride, and I didn't want to sit up in a chair in the bar all night. So the cabins are really cool, but nonetheless, you book that in advance. You also have to book, if you're in Edinburgh, you have to book a train ticket that coincides with your ferry ride. Trains run all the time in Scotland, and Aberdeen's a pretty major place. It's got a huge port, and so there's trains all day long. We booked one that landed us in Aberdeen about 2 hours before the ferry left, which is perfect because you can get on the ferry 2 hours beforehand without any problem, and they're always on time. Don't waste a whole day sitting around in a shopping mall there. That's where the train station is in Aberdeen, but it's really just a few steps. Like a few blocks is all to the ferry terminal. So it's easy walking. Again, you don't need a car. So then let's go on from there. So I talked about the ferry. Now, there's a picture of our airplane we took out of O'Hare. Isn't that nice? Aer Lingus out of Terminal 5 there at O'Hare. Beautiful, right when the sun is going down. Oh, that's another thing I want to mention too. Try to book a later flight later in the day, because these flights to Europe tend to land early in the morning. And guess what? There's not much to do if you land somewhere. Like if you say you land, book a flight that gets you to Dublin and then lands you in Edinburgh at 7 a.m. Well, you can't check into your hotel at 7 a.m. And we always like to burn a day too when we go somewhere. So we'll book the night before hotel room. We'll book the night before, so we'll have basically the room is empty while we're flying. And then when we get there, we can check right in and collapse in the room and start to get over the jet lag. If you're really a trooper, you could jump right on the train and head for Aberdeen, but we waited a day. So anyway, there we are on the plane. Look at us. Now, those of you who haven't flown, I know there's lots of people who haven't flown, especially haven't flown internationally. It's a long flight. It's like 7 hours. And but if you have a fear of flying, I always think back of that movie, 12 O'Clock High with Gregory Peck. There's one point in the movie where he's giving a speech. these daylight bombers that are these daylight pilots and gunners that are going out and bombing German positions in Europe during World War II. And a lot of them getting shot down. Those guys don't have a very long life expectancy. So he tells them, just pretend you're already dead, or you're already dead, So that's what I do when I fly. I think, oh, okay, I'm in the plane. I'm already dead. If I wake up where I'm going, that's cool. Otherwise, I'll have another one of those free beers, please. So don't be afraid of flying. That's not very good advice, but so if you haven't flown internationally, there's always a little screen you can go to on your entertainment system that's on the back of the seat of the guy in front of you. And on a short flight like this, coach is cool. If I was flying to Australia, I like to do, something a little higher class, like maybe economy plus or something where you have a little bigger seat and a little more comfort, but you can withstand the 7 hours, I'm sure. So there's always a little map that shows you where your plane is. You go out over Canada, and Land's End is in Newfoundland there, and you're headed for Dublin. And here we are, making our approach over the beautiful Irish countryside. And so we got to Dublin on this nice big Airbus, and very comfortable. And you hang around there for a couple hours, depending on what your connection is. By the way, you're going to need euros when you're in Dublin if you want to spend money, because it's breakfast time. You might want a cappuccino and an egg sandwich or something. You need a few euros in your hand to make that happen. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling out your credit card. So you wait there a couple hours, and then you wander out onto the tarmac, and you get on one of these little over-wing prop jobs for the trip across the Irish Sea. The day we got there, they were describing what was gale force winds, and I'm telling you, Pat walked out. You walk out and go up one of those little ladder things to get in this plane, and she took her hand off her little rolly bag for a minute, and it went zoo, took off across the tarmac. And while we were sitting on the plane, I had brought Dramamine for the ferry ride, and I thought I was going to take some on the plane because it was going back and forth. But they took off, and everything was good. If you want to see, I posted on YouTube a little video of the landing. I held my phone up, made a video in the window, and I almost can't keep the window in the viewfinder on the phone. So it was a pretty rough ride there and back. Here we are over the Irish Sea, and there's a beautiful bridge there, the Firth of Forth Bridge, a really cool bridge from the Victorian era, a rail bridge. And now you're in Edinburgh. Now, when you get to the airport, we don't rent cars in the UK, by the way, because we don't want to kill ourselves or anybody by driving on the wrong side of the road. And plus, car rental is pretty expensive in Europe, too, as a general rule. Nonetheless, you arrive in Edinburgh, and there's a cool tram system. The first time we went to Scotland about 5 years ago, this tram didn't exist. You had to take a bus in, and traffic's pretty hairy. In Edinburgh, it's all surface street. There's no freeways. So narrow streets, it's an old ancient city. So it takes a long time during rush hour to get from the airport into the center of the city, which is where you want to be. But now they have this cool tram you get on for a few pounds, and zoo, it whooshes you right into the city with very few stops. So there you are in Edinburgh. It's looking good. I always fuel myself up with coffee. They have really great coffee over there. I drink coffee constantly. I'm constantly drinking cappuccino, like some kind of snob, but it's really good. So after we spent the night, or you could again do the same day if you were bold and young, you head for Waverley Station, and you've got your pre-booked ticket. All these bookings of this travel, you have to set your dates and commit yourself to booking travel, because it's massively cheap if you book it in advance, and it can be massively expensive if you try to walk up and buy a ticket for that day. And all you do is book it online with your credit card, and when you get there to the station, a few minutes, I like to get there an hour before, but that's ridiculous probably, but you walk up to one of these little kiosks, punch in, you have to have the credit card you bought the ticket with, it'll spit out the tickets. So, okay. So it's a beautiful view of Waverley Station. It's really nice, cool, old train station. Look at those columns with the ornate tops on them. Really neat. A lot of Victorian era architecture, late 1800s. So if you're curious about our trip to Aberdeen, you can look at my YouTube channel, and I will show. There's a video I put up of the entire trip to Aberdeen, all 2.5 hours, and you can catch that if you want to put yourself through that. But the countryside is very beautiful. Okay, here's the hat I bought in Aberdeen. Isn't a nice hat? We hung out before and after the ferry ride at this place called the Craftsman Coffee and Ale House. And they had a lot of good Scots ales on tap, but they had really great coffee because we weren't in the mood for ale at that point. It was early in the morning. Even bought some coffee to take with me on the rest of the trip. So here's the ferry terminal from the road. That's what it looks like. And it's all the sidewalk. You just walk over there. Signs that say to ferry terminal. It's all very easy to find and get to. So now look at this sign here. You want to pay close attention to these because you want to try not to get run over because the cars are not coming from the direction you're used to them coming from. So you want to wait till the man turns green. I don't have a picture of him turning green, but he's yellow now, and you definitely don't want to cross when he's yellow. Even though the locals and a few idiotic tourists are doing it, I would advise you to not cross until the little man turns green. And that's all over Scotland that way. Okay, here's the side of the boat. Why are there Vikings on the side of this boat? Well, Shetland is maybe closer to Norway than it is to Scotland. I haven't scoped that out, but definitely some Norse influence there. And apparently, I think I mentioned this in my last podcast, but in the 1400s, when James became the King of Scotland and the King of England simultaneously, he wanted to marry the daughter of the King of Norway. And the guy couldn't come up with cash for the dowry, so he said, here, I take these islands. So he gave him the Shetland Islands, and that's when they became part of Scotland. Here's our cabin. That's me sitting there, in case you hadn't recognized me. Really nice, 2 twin beds, plugs to plug all your stuff in. By the way, don't forget your little adapter thingies to adapt US plugs to the UK. Lots of things will work. Anything like that has a transformer on it, like your computer cable, some shavers, anything that's got a transformer on it. Just look. Usually it says operates between 110 and 250 volts. And that's what they got there. So, moving right along, what are those on the corner there? They're all over the ship. Those are barf bags. We were really lucky because they had, at the time, what everyone was describing as flat water. In other words, that was like a pond, the whole North Atlantic. But people have told horror stories of really high waves and pints of ale flying off tables and even people flying out of their beds. But the barf bags are everywhere for your comfort and amusement. Here's a nice view of Aberdeen Harbor right before we took off. Okay. And that shows that it's a busy harbor. There's a ton of ships parked in there, coming and going all the time. Ferries, freight ships, all kinds of things. A lot of vessels servicing the big oil industry in the North Atlantic, too, as you might guess. There's Pat on the grand stairway. This thing's like a hotel. It's not like a ferry. We were really shocked. We were thinking like, okay, kind of dirty. Pardon me. A lot of cars, on the lower level, and then kind of not that great. This thing was fancy. It was like a hotel. It was really spectacular. We really enjoyed our trip on the ferry. Another view of the harbor there, the old buildings, and we had a little dinner, had a couple of glasses of beer, and then we had a little music. And having a little music is okay in the bar there. Just don't do it too late. And we finally arrived in Lerwick after 12 hours. We took a nap, It's an overnight trip on the ferry to Shetland. Okay, so we're back at square one here. Let me change cameras here. So I hope you enjoyed that, my little preview of how you get to the Shetland Islands. Now I want to finish up with one of their tunes that I didn't learn it over there. In fact, I have to thank my friend Gus Friedlander who I used to go to his little jam session down at the Celtic Knot in downtown Evanston. And this is one of the tunes they were playing, and I'd never heard. But I really like it. It turns out it's a Shetland tune called Spuda Scaries. Let me turn my mic down, and I'll see if I can play a little bit of that. Kind of slow. I'm going to learn a whole mess of their tunes, but man, they got so many. I heard so many good tunes. That'll be next time, though, when I talk about that. Let me see if I can play a little bit of this thing. Okay, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. But in between now and then, why don't you check out my Facebook page, Possum's Big Fiddle Show, or drop me a line at bigfiddleshow@gmail.com. Catch you next time.